Welcome to the Reasonable Southerner podcast. The South isn't all magnolias in the moonlight, but neither is it all racism and violence. We are just like you. My name is Frances Coleman. I share my insights about my life and yours. More than 100 years ago, a lawyer who later would serve on the U.S. Supreme Court had something to say about openness. Sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants. Justice Louis D. Brandeis was right then, and he is right now. In Alabama, however, it's going to take a whole lot of sunlight to remedy what our state Supreme Court has done to citizens' ability to hold police departments and sheriff's offices accountable. And, for better or worse, it's going to be up to the Alabama legislature to provide the sunlight. I say for better or worse because in years past, state lawmakers have not been passionate, to say the least, about open meetings and open records legislation. Sadly, that's probably a reflection of the fact that their constituents aren't particularly passionate about so-called sunshine laws either. And maybe that's a reflection of the public's poor opinion of journalists. Also, it might be a reflection of the fact very often that when reporters are allowed to see documents, they write investigative pieces that reveal disturbing evidence of abuses and corruption. Case in point, the Catholic Archdiocese of Boston. Reporters for the Boston Globe won a Pulitzer Prize about 20 years ago for their revelations that the Archdiocese, rather than defrock priests accused of sexually abusing children, had simply transferred them to other parishes where they could molest new victims. Oh, and did the Archdiocese warn anybody in those other parishes that it was sending a pedophile into their midst? No. In uncovering the criminal scandal and the church's attempts to protect priests and cover up its own complicity, the Globe went to court over and over, seeking records that the church refused to give it. Eventually, a judge ordered the Archdiocese to make public every single private church file kept on every Boston priest ever accused of sexual abuse. Alabama newspapers used to be passionate about sunshine laws too, and some still are, but newspapers' influence on politicians has diminished in recent years because of cutbacks in staffs, coverage, and printing schedules. Now the state Supreme Court, in a case out of Baldwin County, has ruled that the news media, and thus the public, have no right to see law enforcement body cam footage, other video recordings, and transcripts related to investigations. Think about what that says and what it could lead to. It says that police don't have to explain themselves to the public, and it could result in police departments and sheriff's offices policing themselves. Remember the death of George Floyd last year in Minneapolis? A bystander's video and police body cam footage showed that a white officer held his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds until the black man died after gasping for breath, crying for his mother, and saying, "I can't breathe." It was the bystander's video that yielded the most shocking image of Officer Derek Chauvin with one hand tucked casually in his pocket, pinning Mr. Floyd against the pavement. But even if the bystander had not been there, the body cam video also showed the horror of what happened that day in May of 2020. That horror sparked the largest demonstrations since our country's civil rights movement 60 years ago, and it also ignited tough conversations about race and the disturbing number of black people killed while in police custody. If a similar incident happened today in Alabama, would we even hear about it? Or would the officer's bosses declare that the victim was resisting arrest, was brandishing a weapon, or was attempting to flee and thus had to be shot or otherwise violently subdued? Would they declare any and all video footage as investigative materials that are shielded by the Alabama Open Records Act? I think you know the answer. Yes, in most cases they would conceal footage. They wouldn't have to, mind you, but the court's ruling gives them free rein to do so. I want to reiterate what I've said before and strongly believe. Most law enforcement officers are good people who behave responsibly, and they provide a great service to their communities. They go places and do things, often in considerable danger, to keep us safe, even now in spite of much criticism and scrutiny since the George Floyd murder. Moreover, the Baldwin County Sheriff's Department, whose sheriff was sued by the Lagniappe Weekly newspaper in Mobile, is well run and its sheriff is well respected. Lagniappe had sued over some 2017 bodycam footage of a deputy fatally shooting a civilian. Naturally, the sheriff is happy with the state Supreme Court's decision, and the newspaper is not. The public should not be happy either. There is a solution, as one of the concurring justices wrote, and that is for the state legislature to update the Open Records Act to take into account new technology and to make clear whether video and audio recordings are included in the law. It's almost instinctive for lawmakers to jump up and declare that they back the blue and they would never allow anything to interfere with police investigations. But backing the blue shouldn't mean that police killings aren't thoroughly investigated. Especially, it shouldn't mean keeping the public from seeing what happened so that we can draw our own conclusions. With plenty of sunlight, we'll see that sometimes officers are in the right, and that at other times they're in the wrong. But on those occasions that they are in the wrong, it's not a matter of, oops, my bad. An innocent person may have lost his or her life because of incompetence, poor training, or malice. With such high stakes, it's incumbent on legislators to right this wrong in their next session. I'm Frances Coleman. I've worked for newspapers for more than 45 years, from Texas to my native Louisiana, and finally to my home near Mobile, Alabama. I've been a reporter, an editorial writer, a columnist, and an editorial page editor. I've commented on the BBC, been a guest on the Rachel Maddow Show, and had my column distributed nationwide. If you like this podcast, please follow it. It's free, and even if you don't like it, I hope you'll find it thought-provoking.